right, thank you so much for being on time.
No.
Obviously, your fellow countrymen and women have not. We actually registered almost 300 people this evening, but we do that even though we have.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A warm and loving to all of you. Salam, Shalom, Shanti, Ukutula, peace, Priyada. This is South Africa, and we'd like to warmly welcome all of you to this event today. Greatly appreciate your time to be with us here today, and on behalf of South Africa-Palestine Movement, the KZN Palestine Solidarity Forum, Islamic Medical Association, and the Caring Sisters Network, and all our PSOs, we'd like to warmly welcome Yusuf Omar and Scene TV to Durban and be part of this premiere. It's very heartwarming to see all of you present here today. 2 years and Gaza continues the genocide. And I know many of you, in your own way, are continuously engaging either on social media, TikTok, and all of them, as well as in physical action. And I'd like to very proudly say that many people seated here today have come from the 91 Fridays for Palestine event, which the PSO hosts every Friday from March last year. So we would also like for you, in your own capacity, whatever you can do for Gaza. And the one important thing each and every one of us can do while we're seated here is the boycott. And today I'm asking you to boycott just 4 items. Because if you boycott collectively, it will impact. But each of us, if we boycott 1 item, we will not make a dent in this genocide. So, for Durban, it's Coca-Cola and all its products. There's lots of them. Clover and all its products. Nestle and all its products. As well as ZZ2. But I know for many of us, Palestine activists, we are continuously boycotting everything that we know needs to be boycotted. So, Yusuf is a co-founder of Scene TV, and he's an award-winning journalist at CNN. He's recently done Gaza ER, and you and I are very fortunate that this is the first time it's being shown in Durban and South Africa, and many of us will have opportunities whenever to watch lots and lots of other movies. So on behalf of all of us present here today, we'd like to warmly welcome Yusuf to Durban, and we'll share the mic with you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for coming out, everyone, this evening. Firstly, just vote of thanks, like the Islamic Medical Association that we're at right now. What a fitting venue, because the movie that we're going to be watching, Gaza ER, is about doctors and medical workers going into Gaza. And then the South African Palestine Movement, the KZN Palestine Solidarity Forum, just so sweet. Like, dropped them a DM, said, hey, I'm coming to Durban, and they just opened up their doors and network and access, and I really, really am so grateful, alhamdulillah. I also just absolutely love your city. My mom is from Durban, born and raised. I honestly think Durban is the, I'll say this on record, the most underrated city in the world. In the world. Like this morning I was in the ocean and we saw octopus and shark and what else did we see? We saw massive stingray, and then you come on land and you have some of the yummiest foods I've ever seen. Like, and then the diversity. I mean, you look at the diversity of this room, and also like everything. Everyone always says I'll be somewhere in 5 minutes. The city, you really can be everywhere in 5 minutes. It's wild. You can go from Westville to the beach to Gateway. It's all like 5 minutes. It's an amazing city. Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. Like, let's just keep it a little secret. Just by way of like what's going to happen, I'm going to share with you guys the flotilla story and my experience being on the flotilla. I'm sure you guys have some questions. Certainly a lot of goss in a city like this. I'm going to speak about narrative change and how we can actually change hearts and minds and end this occupation once and for all. I'm going to play this film, Gaza ER, and then I'll take the Q&A, and then I'll stick around to field any of these questions. Does that sound good? Yeah. It's funny being, so my name's Yusuf. I was a war journalist. I used to work at CNN. Being a war journalist for like 14 years, I covered Syria. I was in there during the Civil War. I've been to Congo, Sudan. I was in Egypt during the first Arab Spring. I became quite known for shooting content on mobile. Most of our audience are not Muslim. Most of our audience are not Arab. Most of our audience are not South African. We have 8 million subscribers across social media platforms, predominantly on Snapchat. And we're targeting a young American audience, 13 to 24-year-olds in the US. So that's kind of the audience that we're targeting. So when you see our content and maybe it's not quite aligned with your value system or it doesn't resonate with you, it's because we're not targeting you guys. You guys are allies, but we're looking for the other side of the internet. This is my son, Noah, and Rayan. They're actually in South Africa today. The reason I showed this image is because he was just 6 weeks old, and he was just 2 years old when my wife called me. I was overseas, and she said, I think you should register to go on this thing called the flotilla. And I was not that familiar with it at the time, and she said, you should go. And she's at the back, and I'd love to have her on stage, but she likes to be in the background. But she basically felt that we had exhausted all other options. We had been protesting, we'd been boycotting, and by the way, boycotting is very effective, right? I think Starbucks have lost $11 billion in market cap. That's no trivial amount of money. It's a significant, like-hearted human beings around the world coming together to do the right thing, has a huge economic impact on these organizations. But we tried boycotting, we tried protesting, we tried online coverage, and this felt like a really direct form of action, to actually get on a boat with food, baby formula, water, and go to Gaza, right? Now, since I've been in Durban, and I've been here for about a week, every family gathering I go to, everyone knows I went to Gaza, and some people I don't know. Like I go to a funeral or a wedding, and they generally have 4-chapter conversation with me. The first chapter, when I meet somebody in Durban, hey you're the flotilla guy. Hey Lani, check here, he's the flotilla guy. Chapter 1, every time. Hey, this is the flotilla guy. Chapter 2, alhamdulillah, you're so brave. Alhamdulillah, you do what I could never do. Every time, you're so brave. Chapter 3, hey, you made it. You made it, Lani. Made it in life? Made it where? You made it to Gaza. Chapter 4, hey, why you never made it? You're scared, hey? You're scared, you got children, hey, it's okay, it's okay. That's not the story. Inshallah, today I want to share with you what the real story is. And there's portions of tonight that I'll ask you guys not to film. You can film most of it, but there's a couple periods that I'll ask you not to film. And that's mainly because actually we want to keep this movement intact. It's so divisive, everyone's fighting. We've got to be one cohesive unit. The Zionists want to break us up, and we can't let that happen. I basically applied, 30,000 people applied to go on the flotilla, which is 500 seats, 30,000 people. And I got a call like 3 days before from some random American voice. Can you be in Barcelona by tomorrow? Bring your own internet, bring your own solar power. You can only carry 10 kilos. We'll see you in Barcelona. And I said, cool, I'll be there. We booked our flights, paid for everything, head over to Barcelona. When I arrived, it was the most beautiful scene ever. Like, imagine everybody, the entire city, every surface covered in like Palestinian liberation, art, and people protesting. None of them Muslim, none of them Arab, just really passionate about Palestine. And that had to happen. They had to find the right city to launch from. Because I don't know if you guys know this, there'd been 37 previous flotilla attempts. 37. Yeah, I also was very surprised. They've been having, obviously, for a long time before October 7th, because Israel had held this occupation for such a long time. So there's been 37 previous attempts. And most of them fail at the point of departure, because Israel put so much pressure on the host nation that they don't let the boats leave. In fact, earlier this year, there was a mission leaving from Istanbul. They packed the boats, everyone flew in, and they cancelled it at the last minute. And there's so many different authorities that can cancel it. The mayor, the Coast Guard, the Port Authority. So can you imagine, there's like 50 different organizations that could all cancel a mission. And imagine in the weeks preceding that mission, they're all getting phone calls from like Zionist lawyers trying to put pressure on them. And any one of those could be a weak link. But they knew that Barcelona is so passionate about Palestine. The Catalonians are so loyal to this movement that if there was any effort to compromise the mission, they'd set the city on fire, right? When I got there, we started doing training. It was 3 days of intensive training, and it was mainly focused on non-violence. How do you do nothing and say nothing in the instance that the Israelis intercept or attack the mission, right? How do you de-escalate the situation? Because in 2010, there was a similar mission. There were people from 33 countries that traveled on this flotilla to Gaza. It was a huge boat. It looked like a cruise ship. It was massive. And the occupation forces, the Israelis, boarded that boat and they shot 10 aid workers dead. They then deleted everyone's footage, took away their cameras, but one Brazilian filmmaker smuggled a USB stick out, and that showed the world what had happened. And they actually shot these aid workers execution style in the back of the head. So this really gives you an idea of just how risky this kind of a mission is and how badly it could go wrong.
It is growing around the world after the Israeli.
Find anybody who could be potentially seen as a hothead. Anybody who because you only need one person on the mission to get aggro and put their chest up and make some noise, and suddenly everybody's lives at risk. So you're trying to identify those individuals and make sure they're not on the mission, basically. During those 3 days, I also had the opportunity to hang out on the port. Hang out and check out the boats and suss out. And this was the worst part. We had 20 boats leaving from Barcelona, and all of them were, as they say in Afrikaans, befokt. They were all, is that the right word? No?
You got it almost right.
Oh, okay. They were all messed up. They all had leaks. They all had engine issues. They were all rusting because they were all either donated or secondhand. They were really bad condition. And what a terrible, terrible state to be in, right? You're about to embark on a journey several thousand kilometers across the Mediterranean with a bunch of untrained people. It's already risky. You know in 2010 that they've killed some people. And now on top of that, you're with a bunch of boats that are not even seaworthy, right? So for the 3 days, I just watched volunteers. And by the way, everyone's a volunteer, right? Nobody's paid. Day and night, welding, fixing, trying to bring in engines from different places, trying to fix these boats that were so dysfunctional in every possible way. During this time, I actually had the opportunity to get really close to the people that organize the flotilla. There's 5 or 6 of them, it's not many, right? It's Greta Thunberg, it's Thiago, it's Yasmin, there's a handful of them. And because I was able to shoot all this content and get it up to the internet, and we were really seeing a lot of traction, a lot of it was going viral, right? I was being able to give you guys regular updates. We built a really close relationship with these guys. On the day we left, it was the most beautiful scene I'd ever seen. It was just thousands of people as far as the eye could see. It felt like you were going to war. People were crying, and it made me more worried. I'm if you're crying, should I be crying? It was a really, really, really emotional scene. This is also the day that I found out that I was on the family boat, the main vessel, with Greta Thunberg and the main steering committee. And that was a really big relief for my parents. I think on a mission like this, you want to be surrounded by as many white people as possible. I joke, but there is passport privilege. They were seeding Western European passports into the various boats because it would legitimately be safer. And on top of that, I thought being with Greta would be pretty safe, right? Even for the Zios, it's a pretty bad look for them to kill Greta Thunberg. So this just it was such a blessing. I had access to all these incredible voices and could spend time with them and help tell stories. And I felt a real responsibility for my role as well, because they told us in the training that visibility was the only way to keep the flotilla mission safe. We needed as many eyeballs as possible so that it would be too politically humiliating for the Israelis to even think about compromising this mission, let alone hurting somebody. So the mission, and each boat had various roles, right? You had a doctor, you had a mechanic, but each boat had a storyteller. And the storyteller's role was to get the story out to the world, to get as much visibility as possible, and then of course redirect that visibility right back to Gaza, to the genocide. Because you don't want the story to be on the flotilla, you want the story to be on Gaza. I think leaving was such an unusual atmosphere, like meeting Greta, spending time with them. It was a weird mix of being like completely terrified that you're coming up against these crazy superpowers, but also like really hopeful. There was a sense of almost excitement, of like, wow, we're finally able to do something physical, tangible. We're actually going to Gaza. And guess what? This is the craziest part. From the 37 previous missions, 5 of them were successful. 5 flotilla missions have actually arrived on the shores of Gaza and delivered food. And that gave everybody a sense of optimism. Because now, we were embarking with dozens and dozens of boats. Unlike previous missions, which are solo boats. And the feeling was, a lot of Israel's Navy, and by the way, the Navy's not that good, are deployed in the Red Sea to deal with Yemen. So the idea was, if you had enough boats arriving at the same time, you could flood the zone, and that some of them would make it through. So everybody who you met had a crazy sense of optimism. They really believed we were going to make it to Gaza. This wasn't something symbolic. It was very legitimate. But God had other plans for us. On the first night of the mission, the first night as we're leaving Barcelona, a massive electromagnetic storm happens. Massive waves are rocking the boat. When you're sleeping on the deck, your mattress is shifting across. Some of the mattresses even blew overboard. We left Barcelona with 20 boats, and when I woke up in the morning, something crazy had happened. I woke up and I saw Tiago, who runs the overall mission. And he's got his binoculars, and I said, hey, Tiago, give me an update. He says, Yusuf, it's not good. I said, what's up? He said, we've lost all internet and radio. The storm has taken everything out. I'm having to use binoculars to sight our other boats.
What are you looking for?
We need to get the visuals of the boats. Most of the boats, they lost their internet. Quite a bunch of the boats lost their VHF radio. So we need to find them visuals.
We ended up losing 7 boats on the first night of the mission. 30% of the fleet had to either be rescued by the Coast Guard, had to turn back, or they didn't even make it out of the port. That gives you an idea of how bad these boats were, how dysfunctional they are. Also, the conditions were really rough. There were 20 of us on a boat made for 8, and we were all covered in bodily fluids. It was like a scene from The Exorcist. It just kept, like, every time I thought it would stop, it didn't stop. It just kept going. Like, it was rough. I was, needless to say, not feeling good. But like, no matter, and boat conditions are hard, right? Like, there's 20 people on a boat made for 8. You're in the sun for like 17 hours a day. There's very limited food. Our desalination system broke on the third day, so we couldn't use the taps to wash our hands. We couldn't shower the whole mission. You couldn't even wash the dishes. You had to use seawater for everything, even flushing the toilet. But it just gave you so much perspective as to like how privileged we are compared to what daily life has been like in Gaza under siege and through this genocide, right? And I think coming to terms with that was hard, but like at the end, there was nothing in comparison to what they go through. And I think what gave us hope was seeing this international convergence of boats. As we started to make it out into the waters, you'd see more boats arriving. Remember, there were boats leaving from Sicily, there were boats leaving from Tunisia, so the fleet was getting bigger and bigger, and that felt amazing. Like the sense of like global solidarity. Remember, I mean, you guys know this full well as South Africans. South Africa's liberation struggle, while fought hard from the inside, was also fought from the outside. Right? There was people all over the world coming together, screaming to free Mandela, recognizing the ANC as a political movement, not a terrorist organization. The Irish workers not handling South African products in their supermarkets. All of these things happened, and that's what this felt like. It felt like the same thing. It felt like, wow, there is a sense of global solidarity, and the world has not forgotten about Gaza. Every day I try and get calls in. We call storytellers in Palestine. As I mentioned earlier, for some of you guys who are late, we train storytellers on the ground how to tell stories with mobile phones. We curate that into shows, into documentaries from Gaza. We pay salaries for all these young people. And we'd have these calls with them, and they were so excited. They were so excited that we were coming. Some of them were waiting on the beaches, and they had specific orders of what they needed. On the fourth night, something happened that none of us expected. Just after Maghreb, just after the evening prayers, we had dinner, and we saw some lights in the sky, and there were drones. And that gets really scary really quickly. You're basically trained to make your way to the side of the boat and prepared to jump off the boat if the drone stops overhead. Fortunately, the drones we saw that night were surveillance drones. They're different, they're not quadcopters, they have big long wings, but we were clearly being watched. And that was scary. This far out, still 2,000 kilometers away from Gaza, we didn't even know whose drones they were. They could be European drones, they could be Egyptian drones, they could be Israeli drones, it could be any drones, but nonetheless, you feel quite helpless, and you end up putting your life jackets on and preparing for the worst. And that sense of anxiety kind of stayed with us throughout the entire mission. As I had access to this mission, I had access to all the leadership, and it was such an amazing experience getting to learn about the strategy and the thinking behind this all, and what the mission's all about, trying to set up this humanitarian corridor to deliver food and then come back and continue to deliver aid into Gaza. And if nothing else, it was educating millions of people around the world that a siege even existed. Remember, a lot of people around the world didn't really even know or understand the idea that Israel were deliberately starving 2 million people, like they said they would, and they did exactly that. One of the things, though, that was happening was, because our videos were going so viral, right? By this stage, my personal social media following had gone from like 50,000 followers to like 350,000. We were basically becoming the primary source of news and information on what was happening on the flotilla. And the problem with that is, we are a journalism organization, and some of that content was scaring people. So for example, when 7 of the boats got hit by that storm, it basically made some of the people that were still leaving from Tunisia and Sicily suddenly be like, ugh, I don't know how safe this mission is. So that was just the dynamic that we had to work through with the leadership, because at the end of the day, like, we're not a communications team, we're a media company, so we're gonna put out what we think is in the public interest for people to know, right? When we arrived in Tunisia, we were supposed to stay there for 1 night, just to get fuel and food and that kind of stuff, and we actually kept the boats like 500 meters in the ocean. We didn't bring them out into the dock, because every time you come to a dock, you risk that country stopping the mission. So you always stay out at sea. We come to Tunisia, and it was the most beautiful scene I'd ever seen. Like South Africa, they are incredibly passionate about Palestine. And actually, a few days earlier, Greta Thunberg had lost her frog hat, which was blown off the boat. And I put a message on my social media saying, hey, if anyone has a frog hat, bring it to Tunisia. And like dozens and dozens of people brought frog hats. Again, just like beautiful global solidarity, people coming together to help other people. Unfortunately, there were huge logistical issues, and what was initially 1 day became like 4 or 5 days that were in Tunisia, as they were trying to get fuel, water, food. Also, there was a lot of boats leaving from Tunisia. We went from 20 boats to 40 boats, so it was a big logistical nightmare that was playing out. And there was a lot of coordination that was happening at this stage. My parents flew all the way to Tunisia and Barcelona to see me, which was really lovely, but also really worrying. I was like, why are you so worried? Should I be worried? They're amazing. They're in Durban at the moment, if anyone wants to go see them. So they flew out to Tunisia, and I wanted to spend as much time with them as possible. But on like the 3rd night when we were in the dock, basically you have to have some people on board to look after the boat in case the Israelis try to sabotage the boats. In previous missions, they've thrown acid into the water sources. They've tied metal chains around the turbines of the boats. They try to do anything to sabotage it before it even makes it to Gaza. So you have to have people watching. And we'd all come back to Tunisia to sleep at the hotels, but the core crew had stayed on the boats. And on the 3rd night, they messaged us on the social media, on the messaging channel, and they were like, what the hell, guys? You guys are all, as in all the 500 people, you guys are all at the hotels, and you're eating, and you're relaxing as you prepare for this next leg, and we've been on the boats this whole time, right? This gross boat without water, without much food. Can we swap? Can you guys come to the boat and look after the boat, and we'll come to land for 24 hours? So nobody replies. Literally, like, nobody replies. This whole group goes dead. And my dad actually says, yo, you gotta go. Like, you gotta go, like, do your role, take over the, like, go on the boat. So I very begrudgingly catch out a little dinghy at like 9 p.m. at night, and I go out to the boat, to do my shift, where I'm going to look after the boat for the night. And I'm joined by about 5 other people. And I look at the piece of paper when I arrive, and it says, hey, you're going to be on from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. That's your time where you're going to be on night watch. And night watch basically means looking out for drones, looking out for any scuba divers, anything that could compromise the mission. But I'd be on night watch during those hours. So I decide, hey, I'm actually going to sleep, right? It's like 9 p.m. I'll get some rest so I can wake up to my night shift. And I slept right on the top of the boat, like at the top on the top deck. And then there was a guy at the back of the boat that was on night watch, and then everyone else slept below deck in the bedrooms. And at 11 p.m., I just hear this enormous explosion. And I open my eyes, and there is just fire everywhere. My face is like boiling hot, and I can see this like flame coming down from the sky. Literally, like the back of the room, maybe 2 or 3 meters in front of me. I instantly knew what had happened, but your brain doesn't quite register it. Like you trained for the potential possibility of a drone strike, but you never ever think it's actually going to happen, especially not 1,500 kilometers away from Gaza, right? We're still all the way in Tunisian waters. And I just lose my mind. I start screaming. I scream as loud as I've ever screamed in my life. But it's like when you're in a dream and you scream as loud as possible, but it feels like nothing's coming out. It's the only way I can describe it. Like I'm screaming at the side of the boat, trying to get other boats' attention. Then I run down to the gully, and I'm screaming down the staircase to try and wake up the crew, right? The captain and everyone. There's still people sleeping below the deck that don't even know what's happened. I'm saying the boat's on fire. And that's when I go live on Instagram, and I'm not even reporting at this stage. It's like an SOS call.
Our vessel is on fire. We have been hit by what appears to be a drone. We are on the flotilla off the coast of Tunis. We just got hit. The vessel is on fire. Our vessel is on fire. We've been hit by what appears to be a drone. We've been hit by what appears to be a drone. We are on the flotilla vessel off the coast of Tunis. We are on the flotilla vessel off the coast of Tunis.
You can hear like that's not reporting, that's just like desperation. That's like identification of like we're at this location. The reason why is because where the drone had dropped the explosive was at the front of the boat, right next to our fuel tanker. The diesel fuel tanker, just for perspective, imagine this trestle table, but like twice the size this way and 4 times the size upwards. It's a big, massive like cube. It's designed to have enough fuel to take you the whole journey. And this fire is right next to it. And I've been afraid many times in my life, mostly in South Africa, but never this afraid. Like not knowing if you're going to see your kids again, not being able to see in front of you because there's smoke, you're swallowing all the smoke. Like I legitimately didn't know what was going to happen next. And especially Israelis are known for their double tap, right? They drop one explosive, they wait for people to come, and they drop a second. You just feel so helpless in that situation. You feel so utterly helpless. We're able to get fire extinguishers, put out this fire. Then, the Tunisian government did something so stupid. They put out a statement to say that there was no drone attack, right? That there was a lighter in one of our pockets that caught on fire. They couldn't, insane. They had to protect themselves because it was an attack on their sovereignty. Effectively, it was an act of war by Israel. What the Tunisians didn't know is that we had CCTV footage from multiple cameras of these drone attacks. At which point they had to kind of reverse and correct their statement. But the crazy thing is, in the subsequent days, I was doing these media interviews, right? With all the international media, because I'd been on the boat and I was like closest to the explosion. And even the media, even though we're watching the footage of the drone attack, they were still denying that it happened. It was like global gaslighting. Like you're watching the footage together, you've got eyewitnesses who were on the boat, and you're still denying that it happened.
Crew looks to be a drone strike. That hasn't been verified yet, right? Has there been any establishment of the fact that it was a drone?
Verified. Yeah, we got multiple eyewitness accounts, including 2 people on the vessel. 2 people.
And then on top of that, a lot of the media interviews that I was doing about the drone strike soon moved to what? What was the next question? What about Hamas? And a lot of their questioning was centered around Sky News, for example, and so many others. They were like, why are you even doing this mission of delivering food if Hamas just released the hostages, then Palestinians should get fed.
But you don't think calling for Hamas to release the hostages is a pretty good start in terms of ending the atrocities that you were just
I'm
describing?
actually kind of suggesting that Israel should be allowed to starve the population in return for hostages. Does that sound fair to you? That sounds like collective
I'm
punishment.
asking if you
Yeah, I'm just running by your logic. You're saying if they release the hostages, maybe then the civilians will get food, right? That's the definition of collective punishment.
in terms of some of the demands that Israel has put on the table.
Yeah, but that means Israel are using food as a weapon of war. They're using food as a leveraging tool to get hostages back, is what you're suggesting. That seems to me like a collective punishment.
So it was absolutely insane. Oh man, I realized very early in the interview that she wasn't well researched. And I'm like, oh boy, you entered the wrong conversation. So this really weird moment where like we had been, it was so weird. I was on the main flotilla boat with Greta and all these people, so we had a lot of attention on our content. And then I happened to be on the boat when the drone strike happened. So then we had even more people who had become aware of us. I was walking around Tunisia and it was the weirdest stage of my life. No one's ever recognized me or the work I do. But for the first time ever, people had flown in from the US and the UK and Germany, and they were like, brother, I saw your videos on social media and that's why I'm here and I'm trying to join the mission. And I'm like, it was such a weird feeling to me. I'd never ever experienced this in my life. But there was another weird atmosphere emerging. And this thing really took me by surprise. There was like, you see, in like, I didn't know this at the time, but like in activism, there's a lot of people who have been working for a long time to kind of, you know, be in these positions. And there was emerging a sense of like, who the hell is this guy? Like, where the hell did this guy come from? And I really saw it for the first time in a major way when we were at this press conference, where me and a bunch of people that had survived the drone attack were talking to the media, and I was filming it, and then some guy next to me who I'd never met before, some random old man, was like, he just came up to me and started saying, stop it, stop reporting, stop what you're doing, everybody hates you, you're causing a lot of trouble for us, just stop it.
Yo, there is a press conference starting right now outside the municipal building here in Tunis.
So it was so weird. I was like, who the hell is this guy? But like, there's this weird sense of like, there was clearly something emerging there where like some people were unhappy with me. We then had on the 5th day a massive conference. We brought all the 500 people that were on the mission to give them an update on what was happening. And I'm sitting there and we're exhausted. We haven't slept for days. We're like hungry, tired. And the weirdest thing happened. I'm sitting there at that event, me and my videographer were shooting, we're interviewing people, and I get a tap on the shoulder by like these two really large Americans. They're like, hey, can we speak to you outside? I'm like, yeah, sure. Pop out, yeah. We speak to you outside. We pop outside, and out of nowhere, these two Americans who are veterans, they've served in Afghanistan and Iraq and these kinds of places, are like, they basically say, and by the way, we can not film this bit. Doctors going in and out of Gaza. That's choice number 1. Choice number 2, we can have a Q&A and discussion about how to change people's minds. How to change people's minds. I think, yeah, let me do a show of hands, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of people in both camps. Option number 1, Gaza ER, which is the film. Oh God, this is so hard. Option number 2, narrative change. Okay, I think Gaza ER wins, right? Okay, cool. We're gonna move on to the film. Effectively, like, the only way we can end this occupation is storytelling, to be honest. Like, food, water, shelter, baby formula, all the things that, you know, Gifts and Givers and so many organizations are doing is amazing, and it keeps people alive, and it keeps people, like, day to day alive. But if we actually want to end this apartheid system, this occupation, what we actually need to do is to change millions and millions of hearts and minds, predominantly in the US. And it's already happening to a very large degree. Look at the big Pew surveys, the Gallup surveys. Young Americans are pro-Palestine for the first time in history. It's absolutely huge. Israel stuffed this up so badly. Like, if sympathy was a commodity after October 7th, they had more of it than anybody in the world. And what they did next, revealing their true genocidal colors, made the whole world hate them and see them for exactly who they are. But we still have the older generation to convince, because politics and policymakers are lagging so far behind the population. And older folks in the US and the UK and Germany are still relatively Zionist, because they've been fed a junk food media narrative, right? That Arab populations are dangerous, that Muslim populations are trying to kill you. They've, for 50 to 75 years, vilified Palestinian populations so that it's acceptable to kill hundreds of thousands of them, right? Oh, well, Hamas are under that school, under that hospital, so we got to go kill them. The only way we can tackle that is storytelling, is media. And the other side are so familiar with this. They invest tons of money in media. So that's the play here. Let's see past all this. All right, so we try to do a film every month. It's really hard, but we try to work with young kids to produce films from Gaza. But this is our first film that we've produced with a bunch of doctors. And it's so appropriate that we're in a medical facility today. We worked with 6 doctors and medical workers as they made a way in to Gaza. And we wanted to document the reality. The reason why we wanted to work with American doctors specifically is because we knew Americans would be able to speak to other Americans. We knew especially white Americans would appear on Western media. So this is our first film working with doctors, remotely guiding them to tell this story. This is Gaza ER for the first time in Durban. We can hit the lights. And 77 years of occupation, but I think what is clear is that more and more Americans. Oh, sorry. I know it's really hard to watch after 2.5 years of genocide, but what is clear is more and more Americans are realizing the truth. More and more people around the world are realizing the truth, and like we are the majority. We often think we're in the minority, but the majority of the world on the right side of history are pro-Palestine. It's just a handful of countries that are not. I just want to, you guys can hear me anyway, right? Yes. I just want to briefly tell you guys about what we're trying to do about this. They've killed almost 300 journalists in Gaza, right? And they're still not allowing, thank you, they're still not allowing international media in. So our objective is to train the next generation of storytellers. We're trying to train 2,000 of them. It's really, really hard. We've spent, like, we're about 5 million, what's $300,000? 5 million rand? Around there? Around. We're about $5 million rand in the red in terms of this project. It's really, really hard. We pay salaries, we buy iPhones for young people in Gaza. Like a normal iPhone, like 15, can cost us like $3,000 or $4,000 because it's so hard to get stuff in and out of Gaza. But we think that this is the most important work right now, is narrative change. Is empowering the next generation, the future Bissans, the future Motazes, to tell their stories. We've got 50 storytellers on the ground. We've generated now over 600 videos. When you saw us last time in Durban, it would have just been a handful. We use. Skip past all this. If you guys want to support, we normally do these t-shirts for 350 rand, but for Durban we'll do it for 250, or to be honest, whatever you can afford. I don't care. It's made by my friend Ismail Banker at the bank back. Thank you so much for your help. All of the money from the t-shirts go to creating more stories from Gaza. That's the end game here. We just want more content, not just until there's a ceasefire, but until the occupation's over once and for all. Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman actually once told me that this is not a war, like ending the occupation isn't going to be won with planes and tanks and bullets. It's not about like fighting a battle with bullets. It's a narrative battle. It's about stories that change hearts and minds. Yeah, other than that, thank you so much for being here, and I'll take a couple questions if you have any. Thanks so much. Any questions?
I just want to ask you, Yusuf, from here going on, what's going to happen in the future with future in Palestine or what the Gaza Strip? What's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, that's $1 million question, right? What does the future look like for Palestine? I think lots of people have theories, and there are far better experts than I. I would say, from my perspective, the short-term trajectory is very bleak, and the long-term trajectory is very bright. In the short term, if you look at what has happened this week with the UN, the United Nations, endorsing the Trump peace plan, right, affirmating apartheid, and outsourcing the policing of Gaza to potentially a handful of states in the region, other Arab states. So they've literally legitimized the occupation, they've legitimized the apartheid system, and now this is happening on the United Nations level. So in that respect, Gaza has never been more bleak, and as we can see by the maps, it appears to be getting split into multiple pieces, much like the West Bank, right? So it'll look like a series of islands separated by apartheid walls, apartheid buildings, and the objective of the genocide, I think people often think that the Israelis are trying to kill everybody in Gaza. They're not. They're trying to make it so unlivable that the population are ethnically cleansed, that they choose to leave. But the Palestinians have proven not to do that, right? They've endured such a incredibly difficult history. So I think that the near term is very bleak, and Gaza will eventually take the shape of the Palestinian Authority's actions in the West Bank. It'll be a Banchistan. There will be a puppet government put in place. It'll get smaller and smaller, restrictions to water, etc. And unfortunately, there will be a displacement of people. However, the one thing that's interesting about the Middle East is there is pretty much without exception not a single country in the Middle East that is free. It is the last part of the world that is still fully colonized, where the leaders that are put in place are largely representative of interests from the British, the French, and the Americans. And that's not sustainable. There's a huge, young, disenfranchised populations that have had multiple uprisings, right? We had the first Arab Spring, we then started to see the second Arab Spring. There will be a turning point where Arab countries will be represented by people that the people want to be represented, right? They will have their moment. They will have it. It's inevitable. There can't be this one part of the world that's not free. When that happens, when the Middle East is free, Palestine will be free. Because it will be so unsustainable to have this little island of, frankly, Western Europeans, white people, in a sea of Middle Eastern people. Israel is not sustainable as a state. They know this full well. That's why they're trying to make as many gains as they can right now. So I think the short term is really bleak. I think in the long term, they'll definitely be free. Just look at you guys know full well. Look at the late 80s, early 90s. South African apartheid looked like it would never end. And then it did.
I like to ask a question. You said you are a Christian, and with the drone attack. Right. Do you have anything to protect yourselves? Like anything like?
No, you have absolutely nothing. Like, firstly, the thing about the drone strikes is they're not designed to take out the boats, right? Israel and the US have such sophisticated weaponry, they could vaporize every boat in a matter of seconds. The objective of those attacks is to scare, so people don't go. And they did the complete opposite. More people signed up, they were more emboldened. That's the only thing the Israelis have, is aggression and violence, right? The other side have everything else. They have the moral compass, they have global solidarity. That's the only thing they have. No, you have no defense. There's absolutely nothing you can do. Visibility is the only thing you can do. Literally, your mobile phone is your best form of defense. And that's the same for Palestinians on the ground, to be honest. They have no defense from drones that are attacking them every single day. All that they have is the agency of their mobile phones to document those atrocities.
There's another question I would like to ask.
Yeah, sure.
What I want to say is, as of Gaza,
white people have about Gaza is that they believe that if you build nice resort-like housing somewhere else, in Jordan, in Rwanda, that Palestinians want to live there. And the reason why white people do this is because they themselves often don't have any connection to land, right? They are migrants of migrants of migrants who have landed up in Australia, in Canada, in the United Kingdom, well, they kind of came from the United Kingdom, in the US, right? So they themselves, South Africa, right? They have no connection to the land. To be honest, neither do I, right? I've been a migrant, I have no connection to land. But for Palestinian people, so that's what they don't understand. I think Trump and them truly believe if they create the ideal conditions that people will move to safety in other places, and that's just not happening for them.
You said there was a choice of having a conversation about changing the narrative. So
Yes.
Can I add that to the question here? Ask what, in your opinion, would change the narrative and move towards something like that?
Yeah, I've got a whole deck on that, but in short, there's 3 stages. You have to tap into people's hearts first. We have to try to explain the Nakba and the history and the occupation and these kinds of things, but actually, if you don't speak to their heart and humanize Palestinians, that's the first stage. Through awe, through shock, through horror, through inspiration, something, just connect on a human level. The second stage is you need to speak to their brain. So teach them about the history, the context. And the third and final stage is you need to speak to their wallet. Boycotting, divestment, sanctions, etc. You can't do those kind of activism steps if I haven't even understood the history, and you can't do the history if I haven't even recognized you as a fellow human being. So we have to map out these different stages of bringing somebody across the line, and then there's different types of content and programming and conversations that deal with each of those tiers. Hey.
Just to follow on.
Wow, you got a great voice.
Just to follow on from that, I'm wondering about social media, and particularly where it's been taken over. I live in an area that essentially, a part of its history has been very much a conservative Christian one. And the narrative that is being fed then comes from the heart of, conservative Christian organizations in the States and elsewhere. How do you, as journalists, work in that terrain, and what can be done to try and correct it? I mean, all the time. I go around even with that little map of Palestine being eaten away. And people are amazed. I said, well, how would you feel? And people are really surprised. So I know the human story's there, but sometimes,
Yeah, it's all this bullshit language of like Judeo-Christian values as well. It's such a new piece of language that are tried to amalgamate. And you're right, the biggest Zionists in the world are actually the Christian Americans that are driving this whole thing. I'll take you guys through it really quickly because it seems like there's a lot of interest in this narrative change of it. So there's a spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, people are pro-Israel. In the middle, they are the movable middle. These are the people we can actually bring across the line. And on one side are vocal supporters of Palestine. These are the people I actually want to speak to, is the people that are in the middle. I don't know, man, it's so complicated. Or in South Africa, I don't know, man, it's so complicated. So I've met them all. On the far right of the spectrum are the people that everybody who is brown is a terrorist.
Mahmoud Khalil, he tried and he failed. He was a spy from Syria. Terrorist! Terrorist!
Mahmoud Khalil is a Syrian terrorist. Where did he get the information from? He riles the people up.
So that guy I can't work with. Like, we live on different worlds, we don't see eye to eye on episodes. When I asked him, are there any innocent civilians in Gaza? There's none, right? So he's up the spectrum, I can't work with it. Further along the spectrum, you get somebody like this. This is a woman that wanted to attend our event, and I had a call with her just to get a vibe check, because I actually want Zionists to come. It's kind of like BYOZ, bring your own Zionists. But when I got on a call with her, I realized, oh.
We've got about 50 creators who are in Gaza.
Okay. Do any of them know where the hostages are?
I'm saying that Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, facilitated the funding of Hamas. The Times of Israel have also reported on this. Do you believe the Times of Israel?
Well, it all depends on who wrote it. And it was written by Yusuf Masood, so I don't believe it.
Why would you not believe a Yusuf Masood out of curiosity?
Because I don't believe it.
So, in 1948, do you acknowledge that hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were removed from their homes, forcibly displaced? ethnically cleansed?
Not ethnically cleansed.
Okay. Do you acknowledge that they were removed from their homes?
They didn't have homes, it was rocks.
Okay, were they removed from their rocks?
Okay, so she's not as crazy as this guy. She's still open to discussion, but she's also kind of not worth my while. She's like my grandma's age. She's got very set opinions. Like, let's call her, I don't know, Karen. Then you get Uber drivers. Uber drivers are always down for saying Durban a tune. They want to tune you, dude. This woman, her name's Kate. She's a teacher. She has to become an Uber driver. She doesn't see eye to eye on everything, but at least we can have a conversation.
Israel has a right to defend itself.
Does an occupier actually have a right to defend itself?
There had been multiple proposals that Israel had agreed to for a two-state solution. They said no.
You're the majority of the population, but you will have less than 50% of the land. Which state of population would fit that deal?
Yes, but also Palestine as a country has never existed. Jews lived in that area for hundreds of years, well before any Muslim ever even existed. What is a real practical solution?
True democracy.
That really is then like the willingness of both sides to engage in a process like that.
But are both sides equal in this injustice that we see?
So slightly further along the spectrum, willing to have a conversation. I think I could bring Kate across the line if we had enough time, right? Like, especially if she understood that like Jewish people, Muslim people were basically the same people. Like, once she understood that, it would make a lot more sense to her. Moving further along this equation, I met this woman in Canada. She recognized that Israel is evil, but just wouldn't use the word genocide. She was offended by the word genocide. I'm offended by the actual genocide.
It's not over. It's not over yet.
Why do things have to be over for there to be a genocide?
Because you're using that word for media purposes and like blah blah.
We're using because it's what the genocide experts are calling genocide. It's what the UN special rapporteur is calling genocide.
You asked this historian. He's a historian. I listened to this historian. He went there and he's calling this an inhumane war, and I resonate with that word. And for you to try to keep convincing me that the word that I feel comfortable using in the conflict, which is not my own, is not okay, that's another source of problem. Hear me out. I say it's inhumane. You say it's genocide. We can agree on that. I don't have to use your word.
Imagine if a woman was raped here, and I said, that woman was raped, and you said, no, she was treated badly. There would be a massive difference between those terminologies, right?
I'm not talking about rape right now.
We're talking about something bigger than that. We're talking about genocide.
I'm telling you right now. This is what's creating so much issues, is that...
Alright, so like, that's interesting. She acknowledges that Israel are inhumane. She acknowledges that what they're doing is wrong. Like, we're making progress across this spectrum. With people like her, it's just important to also emphasize that, like, nobody has issue with Jewish people. We love Jewish people. They're just like us. Their men also get circumcised. They eat kosher food. Like, we are very, very, very similar. We have an issue with Zionism in the same way we have an issue with apartheid South Africa. This is the kind of person I can easily get across the line. And then, on the far end of the spectrum, you get somebody who's born into a Zionist family, being on a birthright to Israel, being exposed to all of this, from a young age indoctrinated, and through all the content he's consumed, changed his mind.
It got to 40,000 people had been killed. I was completely brainwashed.
Do you feel like your religion's being hijacked?
Yes, exactly. I think that's probably the hardest thing. Has just been co-opted by this murder. The idea of never again was supposed to be never again for anyone.
Success! Right? He comes from a Zionist family, he's had a particular view his whole life, he's been on the Israeli birthright, he saw all of that, he was completely indoctrinated. When October 7th happened, he was still Zio, but then he saw the truth. And once you learn the truth, you can't unlearn it. There's nothing that anyone can tell you. He's like, yeah, but it's still apartheid. They're like, Hamas, but it's still apartheid. Right? There's nothing that you can use to justify it. So, in answer, it's a long answer to a short question, but there's a spectrum, and there's a million ways to take people across that spectrum. And yeah, as I said to you guys, it's these three pillars. It's emotion, education, and power. And we do that through user-generated content from citizens on the ground, through explainers, and then through these screenings in some of the most Zionist places in the world. And we've seen these young people see these enormous social media growth. They come to us with no social media following, and they grow thousands and thousands of subscribers, and that's really important, because they can shadow ban and censor one or two accounts, They can't shadow ban and censor all of us. So it's a decentralized network of value-aligned storytellers. We need thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people all talking about this at the same time. And most of the audience are American, which is really exciting.
We used to live in.
Yeah. And last question. Hello.
I just want to know what's your opinion on the Palestinians that died last week.
Yeah, somebody asked me about that a little bit outside. I'm not an expert in that subject matter. It does seem incredibly suspicious. It would appear from the reports that I've seen that there's been shell companies set up by Israeli interests with the specific objective of dispersing Palestinians all over the world. I do think for all South Africa's flaws and this government's issues, they were incredible about this subject. I mean, look at Cyril Ramaphosa's statement in response to it. He said, look, they don't have the paperwork, we haven't figured this stuff out, but we're not sending them back. My country, Australia, they would have ended up in prison, basically. So, yeah, for all this country's flaws on this specific issue, they're incredible.
The gentleman that you had there that was the Zionist, did you find out what his family's response to it was when he came across the line?
Man, these young Jewish people who will go against their families and become pro-Palestine, I've got all the love in the world, and they isolate themselves. They have bad relationships with their friends and family. I don't know what it's like to do that. Imagine. When's the last time you changed your mind about something significant? I think that's a great takeaway of this whole thing, is if you want to change somebody's mind, you actually have to approach it from a position of empathy. For so long, I was like, oh my God, how can you not understand? Then I realized they're on a different internet to us, watching different content. They've grown up their whole lives being told a very specific thing, as have we about other subjects, right? So to be challenged on that is really hard and really uncomfortable. And it's really hard to have those conversations and be patient and approach it from a position of empathy, but you actually have to look at them as a vulnerable community that is susceptible to false information, right? Yeah. And once you do that, otherwise you just keep fighting and we don't make any progress. Yo.
If you get another chance, would you go
100%. Yeah, 100%. And I'm already in discussions with the team. Yeah, I definitely would. I got so much love for everyone. I'm still in contact with Thiago and Greta. I think it was unfortunate the way things played out. It was a misunderstanding by people that didn't even know us. But I think it all worked out amazingly, to be honest. God has a plan. And I'd definitely be back for sure. And I'm sure a bunch of you guys will join us. Last one.
I've just seen a documentary about that gentleman after his change across the line.
Yeah, it's such a
and see how his family has treated him.
Oh, it's such a good idea. I want to do a whole series on how I changed my mind. Just like unpacking different Zionists and what was it that took them across the line, what changed their mind. The reality is, guys, a lot of the people that are on the front line of this fight today in the US, in Capitol Hill and stuff, they're young Jewish people. Right? Yeah. Israel's done. In answer to the question on what the future is, they're so done. They're so done. They're scrambling. They're scrambling. They're so desperate. Unfortunately, their downfall will only come with the U.S. downfall, but that's happening faster than anyone expected. I'll be out the front there. Me and my cousins and my co-founder and wife Snare will be distributing these T-shirts. You can scan this QR code if you want to grab one. Yeah. Thank you so much, Devin. It's amazing being here.
For being here, and a great big thanks to all of you for being here. The very important thing that Yusuf has mentioned is changing narratives. And you and I, here in Durban, South Africa, can do that. He spoke about some of the Jewish people who've changed. There's a group of Jews in Gaza, Palestine, and Israel who are called Breaking the Silence. So they are talking about the genocide that took place. But very importantly, we hosted Dr. Miko Peled. His grandfather was part of the system and he was part of the IDF, and he changed, and he's an activist in Palestine. So there's a lot of Jews, and currently young Jews are not going on conscription. They don't want to join the army, And the army that's suffering at the moment, the reservists don't want to even go there. So we call on all of you to amplify Gaza. You and I can change the narrative. And we in Durban have a role to play because our coal is going to Gaza and fueling the genocide. Do you all know about it? And it's leaving from Richards Bay. So with the South Palestine movement, and many of us here, we're actively involved. We've been to Richards Bay, we demonstrated. We want you all to help change this narrative.